There. Thank you. That should do it. Yep. I noticed I had turned off the Focusrite input USB converter. So yeah, as I was attempting to say, last mini is Taryon Darrington, the artificer or artificer or whatever you want to call it, however you want to emphasize the syllable. It'll be the last one this evening. Prior to the stream, I did a base coat. I did some foundation coat for him so that you guys wouldn't have to sit here and just watch me put a single layer on him. As I had noticed last time, there's a little bit of miscast, could be painted up as damage on the left knee. Suggestions I got were for a potential dark armor color, techno wizardy kind of thing. So I was thinking about it. What I might do is give the armor pretty heavy dark wash like I did with Percy, because this is the gray. This is a slightly darker gray than I used for Percy's original coat, so this should come in nearly black. Percy in the background there got a pretty dark coat at the end, so we'll see how this looks. And then I'll hit all the gems, and there's a whole bunch. Some on his belt, some on his breastplate, definitely on the shoulder plates, on the backs of the greaves, gauntlets, one on the helmet. So he's got a lot to work with. And we'll see what we can do. So why don't we start it off real quick. Let me get that dark wash going. Art fixer. All right, I'm going to do this again because this will be nice and quick. We'll get the dark tone in there. We're going to have a nice generous coat. I'm going to have to get a new bottle of that soon. I feel like I'm going to get real low. All right. Here we go. Hope everybody is happy it's getting close to the end of the week. Over here in the US, we've decided that the coronavirus thing is a thing. So people are starting to see it now. Everyone's freaking out. Hopefully everybody on stream tonight is in good health and is staying that way. Some of us have. Most of the people I know have decided to take it upon themselves to make their own precautions, even if the government is being stupid and has their head firmly planted up their backside. But let's not talk about politics, because politics will ruin any sort of genuine, friendly discourse, I'm sure. Not between the people that usually show up. People that usually show up here are fine. We're all in the same boat of frustratedness in most cases. All right. I actually need to put some more of that wash on my palette. Anyway, I hope everybody is staying healthy. I'm looking forward to a weekend of social isolation. In most cases. At least avoiding large crowds. Anyhow, on to Taryon. we're doing a dark wash. We're just gonna bathe his armor in the dark tone that I enjoy so much. Yeah, no kidding, right? Doctor's office was actually all remote today, which was kind of interesting. We had a Zoom call to do an inspection of my daughter and see how she was doing. Turns out she's okay. She's just got a cold. All right. I might need to do 2 layers of this because I'd like this to be darker. I'm going to try and work it in across the chainmail. I might leave the chainmail a little bit lighter because chainmail. But we'll see how this settles. Gotta make sure that I don't have an excessive amount in these cracks. I don't mind it if it's in the helmet proper. Like, in there can be as dark as it ends up being because it's sort of deep in. But trying to dab it out with some of the other spots. Yeah, that kneecap looks cracked. That'll be cool if I paint it damaged. Yeah, once this dries a bit, I'm going to do another layer. So in the meantime, let's do skin tone. How pale do we want him to be? More or less. Basically, she was just sitting there and talking to our physician, and she got. I just brought it camera in close, so she could check her eyes and her nose and stuff like that. Worked out. I mean, nice part about it was I didn't have to wait for half an hour to 45 minutes to an hour in the waiting room. They just called. I mean, I can get behind it. Alright, I'm going to use some of a very small amount of this barbarian flesh from Army Painter. I'm going to go for his face real quick. So he's got, I'm actually going to try and pull out some of what's under his chin here. Up a little bit of that stuff around his neck. I'm going to give that just a second to dry up a little. He does have a mustache and beard that we will be doing some work on. So I'd like to do a quick shout out. Fizzell had subscribed last time, which I greatly appreciate, and I logged on and started up and noticed that OX Saddle had also followed me before the stream tonight. So welcome aboard if you're in chat. It's good to have you. Thank you for the follow. I really appreciate it. We are getting on toward the end of the Critical Role Series 1 miniatures. This is the very last one. We've got everybody else in the background, seeing them off. And I feel like the majority of them went very, very well. To be honest, the only one that was actually a giant pain in my butt was the Vax Mini. That's what happens when you get a little bit of a miscast that you don't notice before you start. Just doing a little light coat of the flesh tone, trying to get in and underneath so I can make sure the neck is taken care of. And then we'll get both sides of his face. Let's make sure we got his cheek. Yeah. Alright, that should hold pretty well. I see that I can actually see his ear in here, and I'm going to make sure that's also got the flesh tone on it. Right up against the edge of his hair. The other side, it's pushed a little bit because of the way his face is positioned. Just trying to draw it up and over. What color should his hair be, you guys think? I know he's like heckin' blonde canon wise, but this is non-canon. And we did Crazy Redhead Percy last time. We've got bright redhead Pike, dirty red hair Percy. We've got white and grays for Vex and Keyleth. We've got a blonde Vax. We've got the. It's funny because Grog and Vax both have blonde. Keyleth and Vex are kind of the grayish platinum blondie, and then there's two redheads. There's two gray whites. There's two blondes if you count the tattoos on Grog's head. That's your call, dude. Delirium, it's your mini. I'd like to do one more wash on the armor. I'd like it to be a little darker than this, but we're getting there. What do you want? You want Cyberpunk Taryon? You want Black Knight Taryon? You want Cyber Black Punk Knight Taryon? We've got some time because we've got to basically let that ink dry. So I'm going to do his hair next, and then I'm going to do a wash on the flesh, and we'll move along. Well, I don't think we'll be able to go full cyberpunk because this is very obviously fancy, bedazzled, jeweled armor. If you had like a sleeveless sort of coat under it that was flowing down behind or something like that, that might be a different story. but he does not. So I don't know. Your call. What do you think? Blue, black. The dark would be nice. Scanlan's also got the dark hair, so it would be 2 dark, 2 blonde, 2 red, 2 gray. Just because. He does need a keytar. Cool. All right. Well, that's easy enough to do. Grab the black. We'll start with that. Or, even better, we'll do this. We'll use night blue. And I'll get the base coat on with the night blue. That's a very watery. Try this again a little bit more. Yeah, it looks like it might be very thin. I'm going to grab my Vallejo detail. So we're going to work with this one. I'm not going to water it down at all because it doesn't look like it needs it. All right. I have a little bit. There we go. Ooh, it is very thin. Got to be careful around the front side of his head. Being real gentle up here because that's where his ear is, and I don't want to have this very thin blue run into it. Doing all right. We'll start with this dark night blue, and then we will probably either do a dark tone or something like that over it just to get it to the right spot. All right, he's got a bit of it down here around his shoulder. And then there's a tiny little bit that goes down under the armor. But the nice part about this is there's a belt. Yeah. So if I get it on the belt, I'm going to be painting that a different color later. So I'm not as worried about it. I'm trying just to hold the base. Sorry, I needed to change that. Pandora gave me something that I did not want. All right, how close? Okay, he's got some more. He's got some serious bangs. Okay. Okay. I think that is properly covered, except for bit over here that I want to get. That should do. Now, the tricky part is right in here. Beard and mustache. Very careful. How are we doing? Where is our focus? Okay. Let's clean that brush off. I've got a lot of that blue left, but luckily it's on the wet palette, so if I use more of that later, if I get some blue gems or something, I can start working with that. Where's my flesh tone? A little bit of this. Move over, Taryn. Flesh wash. Flesh wash. Don't need a whole lot. Much like Percy and Pike, there's not a whole lot of skin showing. There we go. Sharp features. All right, let me take a look. Okay. Looking good so far. Looking good so far. And I'm freaking out some of the details in the front of the helmet so I can tell that it's not actually a miscast, which is nice. So right up in here, let me get my detail brush back. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, potentially 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I see 15, ooh, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, possibly 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, possibly 29, potentially 29 gems. So this should be fun. Potentially 29 gems there, depending on which ones I want to make gems and which ones I want to make metal studs for articulation. So what I'm gonna do, I've got some white over here. Gonna pick some of that up. Maybe I'll do it with this one. White was getting a little chunky. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dab out the gems real quick with white, because we're not necessarily going to worry about them staying white. I just want them to be bright enough that we can see them. I'm going to be doing a second coat of paint on that belt, and I'm definitely going to be doing a second wash for the armor because I'd like it to be darker. Just getting a little bit of the white on the tip of the brush. And this is specifically to call out upgraded gems against the armor plates. He has a lot. Alright. Still going. Still going. He's got some big honking ones on his shoulders. The one that's right there seems to be gone. But that gives you an idea about how many gems he's got. Welcome to the stream, everybody. Notice there's some more that showed up. Glad to have you. I'm pretty happy I'm up to 30 followers now. I only need 20 more follows to get to associate, and I'm not even sure what that means after that point. I don't know if that means I can get to do subs or what. Ooh, you know what? I mean, how would I have thought he wouldn't have a gem on the hilt of his sword? But he's got 3. What I'm doing right now is I'm just, for later, I'm calling out where all the gems are with a bit of white. This one looks to be damaged, so that might be something I fill in as a broken fitting. He's also got some damage down here on his kneecap. I think that's miscasting, but we will call it damage and paint it that way. I know you had to clean up the frog apocalypse in your little riverside property there, so it's understandable. Okay. All right, I'm thinking I'm going to do another coat of our dark tone, which is right over here. I'd like this to be a little darker. We're going for a nice dark armor color. So I'm going to hit it with this twice because it's going to do the shading for us. And it'll mean things will go a lot more quickly once it dries. And we can pick out details and things that we like in other colors, so trim can be done in some fancy filigree or whatever if we would like to get in there and do that. I think this is going to add a little more contrast to it too, so that should be good. Yep. That'll be cool. Hey, Port. Absolutely. I will absolutely be doing more painting streams. My intention is to just make this a thing. Tuesday, Thursday nights. Painting with me. I've got a lot of stuff to paint. A couple of things I'd like to get to once the Critical Role first campaign is done. I might switch over. Might do some more D&D minis from other people if necessary. If I've got it. I've got a Blood Bowl team in the works. I've got a bunch of old, like, mid-80s lead minis, so 80s to 90s, which will be cool. I also have 3 very large Ancient Dragon minis which make these guys look tiny. So this sucker is real big. So I mean, like, palm size base. And I gotta get him painted up. So I might do that guy. For example, this is his wing. He's a big mini. Yeah, probably about 4x4. I'm open for commissions. I'm taking commissions to paint minis for people. I'm happy to, if you have minis to do, paint yours on stream if you'd like. So I've got a bunch of stuff. I've also got. I used to manage a games workshop, so in my basement storage, I have a bunch of other stuff. I have. Yeah. Al, most of the dragon minis are overhang their bases by a considerable amount. Those guys are the Pathfinder miniatures. Pathfinder line of minis. They are fantastic. I really like them. They were also like $19 a pop or something like that, or $20 a pop, or $25. I can't remember exactly what the cost was. But while I had extra money, I snagged them. I do not have any extra money at the moment, so I can't snag any more. I've got a white, a red, and a green. I'm hoping that they do a black and a blue as well. Yeah. Super low for a miniature that size. It was basically for the price of a regular size miniature, like one of these guys, or like Grog or whatever. It was like, you get a dragon. Congratulations. But yeah, I've got a bunch of Warhammer minis. I've got a Tau army that I want to finish up. I've got an Empire army from 2 editions ago that I want to do. I've got a bunch of halberdiers and swordsmen and outriders and spearmen. What else? I don't know. There's a bunch. I've got a bunch of War Machine and Hordes miniatures that I need to finish up as well. I used to play War Machine a lot, and I have a bunch of Cricks. My Crick stuff is almost finished. I've got some Ghost Pirates and some Blighted Ogren that need to get finished, as well as finishing up my Satixus Raiders, who need some work to be absolutely done. And then I can move on and do some of the other stuff I have. I have some Circle of Ouroboros minis. Yeah, I've got a lot. I do have the plastic troll, dire troll kit for with the bits that you attach to make them the character, one rock. So I've got that one. That one mini's probably a decade old, but still in box. So yeah, Port. I've got a lot. I've got a lot to do. I got enough to do this for like 5 years at least, if not more. And who says I won't get more in the meantime? Oh, I forgot to mention, if Quap is on, I don't know if he's in chat or not. But if he's around, he should try and participate in chat for a sec, because I haven't seen the box of Star Wars figures you're sending up yet. And I don't know how long that's supposed to take, if it was just standard shipping. Yeah, but those dragons are really cool, and I need to get those finished up so that people can use them to try and kill me. Or, hell, use them to try and kill other people. I'll loan them. I don't care. But yeah, in the future, I've got a big backlog. I've got, oh man, I have a couple of special release Games Workshop minis from the release of the Wood Elf Army when it got re-released in the early 2000s, early to late 2000s, and then I've got other stuff. Oh, you know what I noticed? I did not update my slideshow. So let's do that. It's probably going to make this image file enormous. So I snagged a couple of these just randomly online, and I think they're cool looking. And then, what do we got? That was that one. Color palette and subject. That's this guy right here. Let's update that one as well because I forgot to do it. Get rid of that one. Get rid of that one. Pop in this one. And I don't know why it resizes it like that. It's a little weird. No Sif tonight. She's off doing something else. But you are in the wrong spot. Get in the right spot. That's better. All right, I'll do that. We'll do that. Lock these back in so they're not adjusted in a strange way. Yeah. Anyhow. Lots of minis. Lots of minis to work on. Okay, that's looking pretty good. You know what I need to do? Again, some more facial feature stuff. I'm going to try and get some eyebrows because he's got to have eyebrows up there somewhere. There we go. And the right one's even raised a little bit. There we go. Sometimes that's just a little detail you need to hit. All right. Still pretty wet behind the knees. That's kind of par for the course for Taryon. We're starting to dry up around where the gems are, so we can start working on that in a little bit. I'm going to need to touch up a couple of spots on top of his head for the dark blue. He is not balding up there, so I need to make sure that that's not... I didn't rub that away with my thumb. Okay. So let's start hitting the gems base coats because this will be fun. All right, Naf, I'm calling on you. I need some good colors for gems. I've done a lot of amethyst lately, but let's do some other ones. So got some reds, maybe some greens, some blues. Which ones should the big ones on his shoulders be? Should those be like red and like a yellow? All right, call them out and I will look them up. Garnet first. That's a good red. That is a good red. Okay. So what's next after garnets? Citrine. Okay, that's a good, it's like a yellow orange. Cool. Give me like two more. It's good green. Okay. Yeah, red, orange, yellow, green. I mean, sapphires obviously are supposedly blue. Is there something better than sapphire? Topaz. That's a lot. Yeah, topaz is a lot of colors. I think I like the lapis better, just for the contrast. Okay. So now we pick out which ones should be red. And should it be uniform? Should it be uniform? I think I have the right red for this. So the big ones on his shoulders, on the top, should those be the red ones? What do you think? How are people feeling about that? So we'll start with this gory red. Is he a hero? That's the real question. And then I'm going to want... this one. It's true. Different guy. This isn't Taryon. Remember that. Not Taryon, just the Taryon model. Yeah, well, you're probably right. You're probably right. Exactly. That was my question, really. I think they're going to have to be pretty brightly colored to stand out. So why don't we do blue up on the shoulder tops? It'll kind of go with his hair. Already got some on my hand. That didn't take very long. So now I'm going to be a little more careful with the way I apply this because I don't want to get it on the armor plates. Start with that. Now, do we want these anywhere else? How about the middle of his bracer right here on both sides? So I'll have 4 of those, and then this one right in the center. Go for that symmetry that Naf was talking about. And then why don't we do... Oh, you know what? No, I want to do orange. I want to do orange under the blue on his shoulders. I wasn't going to do red because if I did like red and blue on his shoulder pads on these prominent gems, I'd feel like he'd be the police. Pull your horse over, sir. Do you have any magical contraband in your backpack? All right. Let's get this one right there. And the other one is under the strap, so we'll leave that. Let's see, where are we going to put the green? I feel like the green needs to be at least up here. And then let's do there and down there. Nice part about doing that white to start with was that it gives a nice undercoat for brighter colors. On reds to start. This one here needs to be red. And I think this one in the front underneath needs to be red. And then right here. And then over here. Maybe in between the larger ones on his bracer. Like that. Like that. I feel like it doesn't have as many. I may need to just cover that a little bit because I don't think that's actually a gem. I think it might just be a flat surface. Whoops. There's definitely one on the back of that gauntlet. Oh, and there's one underneath, I think. I might not be able to get to it. And then we need 2 more up in that area, and then we need the ones on his shoulders. I think we're gonna do red over here, and then red over here, and then we'll do. Let's go back to the blue. Because I think I want this to be blue. And this to be blue. Okay. Let's take a quick look in the back. Where is... I'm going to touch this gray for a second. I'm going to go around to this side and cover that spot. Essentially giving that a highlight instead. I'll do the same thing on the inside. Hit the back of his thumb here and the back of his gauntlet a little bit. There's 2 little ones in between there. One's orange maybe and one's green. Make sure it's a nice small dot. He's like a freaking Christmas tree. Bedazzled. The green one on the back is broken. All right. What about this guy right there? Another blue probably. I think it would even things off pretty nicely. There we go. Mom! Mom! Put the bedazzler down! Mom! And I am going to break out the purple. For just one spot. The front of his helmet right here. I want this to be a gem. Ooh, and on his sword too. I'm going to grab this for the two little bits next to the purple. I do a lot of dabbing and drawing away on the palette to try and make sure I have a point. I screwed that last one up. So let's try and push it away with a slightly wet brush. Okay, good. I picked it up before it dried. I'm gonna go back in and just catch the edge of it. That's all I'm trying to do. There we go. All right, now while I've got that running, I'm going to grab some of the original gray that I used to undercoat it. Make sure it's nice and slick. And I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to hit some of the corners of his armor to give it a little bit of an edge highlight. I'd like to keep it dark and I like the way it blended in, but I want to bring out a little bit of the details on the corners just to have them stand out slightly. We're not going to go heavy. We're just going to take it really gently. Barely have the bristles touch bits of the armor here to lighten it up slightly. Places where it might get some wear, where any sort of you know when you see that darkened metal, like maybe on jewelry or whatever, what we're looking for is the upraised corners of that, how it gets a little bit lighter. And we're just going to highlight the edges real light. The top side of his shoulder plate here. So down here on the back where there's that damage, I want to actually kind of stick the brush in there a little bit. So I'd like it to look like it was scratched. Okay, let me get the collar of his back plate. Make sure I get that corner. I'm going to give it a little bit of a dash here, like just to kind of pick out some stuff that might be reflecting. Not too much, just enough. Give it a little bit more shape to the stuff that's underneath because it'll be easier to see. Definitely get the top of his elbow. Let's get the point of this. I can't get the other side yet because the ink that's in there has not dried. Make sure I get that rolled. It's just going to be, for this guy, for the majority of this, I'm just going in and I'm looking to pick out edging. And I just need to make little tiny thin lines and little bits of accent, a couple of different places. Just to pick out where, you know, light would be reflecting. Down at the bottom edge of this helmet right here. The collar of the helmet. And I don't want to overdo it, so I'm being real gentle with it in most of the places. It almost works better if your bristles are very nearly dry. Make sure that they're not too overly wet with paint. It means that you're just going to hit that edge. You can kind of just use the actual reflection of the lamp that you're using in most cases as kind of a guideline of where you should hit for the highlights. If it shines, make a little line on it. Just kind of take it easy. Take it easy and light, and you'll get them. You don't want to rush this part of it, because when you rush, what ends up happening is you'll hit a spot, and maybe you'll separate the bristles a little bit. And if you do that, what happens is the paint kind of gets drawn towards the front. So it gets kind of hefty. Like if there's a lot of water in the brush or whatever, and you kind of move the bristles around too much, a lot of it runs down towards the front. And you'll get it on one or two, and then it'll be splayed out, and then you'll start seeing all sorts of little like jagged edges and stuff like that that you don't want. But this should get a lot of these details. So this is where it got a little bit banged up, I think. So down here on this knee pad, so we'll have a nice clean line on the top, right? So coming from this direction, we'll highlight it as it gets up towards the point, and we'll start doing this part right here. But this, instead of being dark, will be all banged up. I'm just going to kind of highlight it as a general note, like right in all the parts. It's all mashed, bent in a little bit. And then when we come over to this one, because this one's in good shape, you won't have as nearly as bad. All the lines should be pretty crisp. I'm going to get the top of this joint right here, and then a little bit on the disc. Yeah, we're just going to bring the edge of the brush down here, side of the bristles. We'll do a little bit on the front. Just to kind of extreme highlight the stuff that the ink wash already got. But like I said, down on his leg here, you're not going to see it as much because it's not as bumpy. So we can keep that nice and neat, whereas the other one got dinged up. And we're going to do just a little highlight on the back of that joint piece and then right up under here. Little tiny bit on the top. And we'll get the front of this greave. And the front of this greave. Pick out some of the stuff on the bottom. And I'm going to try and just get some of the detail in his saboton. Right over the toes, bring them up a little bit. The ink has a tendency to pool down towards the bottom, so they'll be a little darker naturally, but I want to lighten them up just a wee bit. And again, we're kind of tracing out some of the raised portions of his armor. I need to take a little bit of the paint off the brush so I don't get too crazy in the cracks. His heels look like they're pretty scuffed, so I'm going to hit those a little more than I would the other bits because I'd like them to stand out just a tiny bit. And I'm also going to do like a little dash on the calf, like streaks, because I feel like it looks pretty cool. But that's just me. You'll end up finding ways to like highlight flat surfaces that look kind of neat. All right, can I get these bits? I think the answer is yes. I have just enough paint on the bristles that if I do this correctly, yeah, we'll pick out some of the embossing details down here. Real gentle, real gentle. You're hardly touching the miniature because you just want to hit those upraised bits and barely get your paint on them. Like that. And then I'm going to give the chainmail a very gentle side brush to pick out some of the ridges in that and make it stand out a bit more. Like that. And we will do the same thing on the back. And I'm brushing down from the top of the miniature because I would prefer, if there is going to be highlights, that the highlights were on top. Okay. All right, I think the highlights on his armor are done. Let's get in here and have some fun with the gems. I need a little bit more of that white. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add the white. I think I'm going to use the Army Painter white. They're matte white. I'm going to put it just over here. Because my intention is to pick up a little bit of that and mix it in with the existing gem colors. I want to lighten that up just a tiny bit because I'd like for this to be the lower part of the gem, because that's how it works. The lower part of the gem is where the light actually spreads out. So there's going to be a white dot on the top, and underside of all the gems is where it kind of spreads a little. Most of my light's coming from this direction. Okay. I'm going to do the same for the red. So the red is right here. Clean that off a bit. I believe I have a little bit left on the end, so I'm going to go like this. I'm just going to pull on it. Sometimes there's a little clump that dries right on the end. It's like a drop, and you gotta pull it off with the tip of the fingernail or whatever, because then it'll be nice and tight. All right. I think this is the point at which NAF starts making fun of me for saying I don't really think doing eyes gets you that much, and I'm doing 2-stage highlights on tiny little freaking gems. Oops. All right, and this one over here. All right, next up, let's go for the oranges. And I'm gonna get the corner of this one, underside of this one, over here. Okay. Grab a little bit more of the white, put it into the green. Green's just eating it up, so let's put some more in. There we go. That's better. Get a good roll on it. So like I was saying, if you're looking at a gemstone or something in the light, and it's one of the ones that is at least partially translucent, what will happen is there'll be a point of light up at the top and underside, and the underside of it will be much brighter than the standard color because light focusing. Kind of pops out of the bottom a little bit. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the white I want to make sure this is very pointed. And we're going to go like... just a little dot at the very tops of these gems. You might not be able to see it on the green as well. I'll get the purples and stuff in a little bit. I know it's kind of picky, it's kind of silly, but I like it when it looks correct. And with this little setup, what'll happen is it will look, you'll be able to see glitter on it essentially from like table distance. So a couple feet away when you're looking down on it, you'll be like, hey, those are bright. I'm going to take this awesome purple right here, and we're going to go under the bottom of the actual purple, like that. Cool. So far, this is what they look like. Which ain't too bad. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab this, and that's gonna help. That'll make it look even better. Because much like keyless staff, which will always be shiny, these will now also, oh, big blue, these will also be shiny. And it will also help them not get chipped and break away and stuff like that. Since they're very small bits of paint and not like a huge contiguous space, they get caught on an edge or something and it might scrape them away. But this gives it a little bit more of a hard coat. Again, we're just going to be kind of gentle with it. I don't want to overdo it initially. I'll go back. We can go back, and if it's not shiny enough, hit them with a couple extra coats, and that'll get a good shine. But these should be pretty sparkly at this point. And they're going to stay like that, so... Hey, Fizz. Thanks, man. My friend. Nice to see you back. So we're doing the dark armor on Taryon, and I just kind of finished putting the gloss coats on the gems so that they are extra shiny. I've done the highlights on the armor. And now I'm going to get to the belt and the sword scabbard. Thinking the belt. Do we want to do black? We just want to do a black leather because it'll stand out enough because it is not super black armor. So let's see how a nice black strap looks over that. We'll do his belts in black. And then I'll just highlight them with a little bit of the gray. Slightly darker. I'll darken it up. I'll grab some of the gray that we used for the armor plates and I'll mix it with the black. Alright, make sure we're in focus here. So I think that'll help the things on his belt stand out a bit. And I can also make sure I got the edges around these gems darkened up just enough. Okay, he's got a pretty fancy buckle going on there. Look at that in a second. He's got a component pouch or something under his arm. Like a toolkit. A couple extra pockets. Pretty sure that would get in the way of swinging a sword around. This is definitely a toolkit here. He's got all these like little, I don't know, screwdrivers or something. Yes, I'm getting the part that's under his arm. Belt on the back should be easy. Make sure it meets up with shoulder plate properly. It goes underneath. That seems to me like it would be a problem if your belt ran under your shoulder armor. I know a lot of modeling does it that way, but I'm not sure that's a solid way for that to actually functionally work. I think it would impede your movement a little. It might stop that plate from properly sliding and rotating. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's just a feeling I have. I feel like the monochrome armor helps us make sure that the gems stand out really well. So that was a good call. make sure I get underneath. And obviously, oops, that's the blue. I'm going to get the bit at the bottom of this chainmail here, which might be fabric, or I'm guessing it'd be leather because it's kind of a chain undershirt under the plate. So that's usually backed with leather. Just getting underneath. And again, don't rush it. It'll be fine. Just kind of take your time to get that spot. If you rush toward the end, you start having to go back and doing touch-ups and all sorts of stuff like that. All right, I'm gonna grab this gray and I'm gonna mix it with the edge of this black. And I'm going to do a little bit of an edging along the top of the belt and the front side of the belt, just a little bit where the sun would hit it. And I'm going to hit the dots. So there's some holes right there. You want to touch those. And you want to get the edge of the lip of the belt and this pouch here. And then this little bit of belt. It's going to look kind of close to the armor, but that's fine. I like to kind of make sure the line is nice and thin along the top. Even if a model is a little thicker, if you just do a thin line, it kind of gives that illusion of it being slimmer. And I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other flat surface, where I'm going to grab this. So down the back of his greaves, I did a little bit of this. Sort of gives it a little bit of texture. And I'll do a little tiny bit of that down on this side here towards the point, and then maybe right there, but not too deep under there because there's not a lot of light hitting that spot. Yeah. Most of the stuff is still wet. This still wet. That's still wet. There's a whole bunch of other stuff. The greens are still wet. It's great. I was using them earlier on because I was finishing up Distant Smoke. So he's all set and ready to go for Friday. All right. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab... Ooh, our black is completely gone. Our black quick shade is completely done. So I like the way that this greave is a bit dented in, so it's shinier silver. I might actually even go a little bit lighter with that. Let me grab this white and mix it a little with this. Kind of hard to see that, I think, but I'm over here in this corner. So we're gonna nick this up just a little brighter. Like whatever paint got on it got kind of scraped off. Maybe I'll do a little bit more on the tops of some of the points of the armor, but not all of them. Occasional small extreme highlights look pretty cool. You don't want to necessarily do the entirety of a line in an extreme highlight, but because it's at the very top, the sun's definitely going to bounce off of that more than other places. So I'm going to bring that very light gray white stage up just a tiny bit. Just a little more. Get some of these details with the side of the brush. Bits that were right next to the gems. Get over here. Yeah, I'm liking it. It's working out pretty darn well. It's like all grays, and then you get these points of color from the gemstones that look super neat. So you can actually do a lot of cool stuff even with a monochrome palette. So don't be afraid to give it a shot. I'm going to hit these bits, which I'm imagining are metallic, around the edge of the scabbard with that lighter gray to get them to stand out a bit. And the tip of the sword scabbard down here at the bottom. Get it on this side. And I'll get the belt and this pouch in the back. There. See if I can get a little bit more of the chainmail to stand out. Like there might be some creases in it. Make make sure I get the helmet with a little bit, because the top of the helmet's obviously going to be pretty reflective, so I want to make sure there's some depth there. Because he's got like these weird wingy thingies. Yeah, that could use those. That highlight works really well. Yeah, I think we're basically done. Oh, you know what I need to do though? I do need to do something about his hair on the top of his head, because his hair is just that blue. So let us grab a little more of that dark tone. I'd like to do a gentle wash of it so it gets into the cracks. And then what I might be able to do is go over it again with very slightly lighter blue. Kind of pick out some of the raised sections and give it some contrast. The tricky part about almost blue-black hair is that it's very dark and it's hard to highlight unless you have something that stands out. So. And it tends to be only extreme highlights stand out. Alright, can I get... There we go. Okay. As soon as that's dry, I will snag. So I use this dark blue right here, so I'm going to grab a bit of it, and then I'm going to mix it with the white that's sitting right next to it. So now I've got this medium blue right here. But it's not like that, it's the same shade. It's almost a purple. I want to make sure I have a little bit of it on the brush. So I'm going to gently drag the brush on the paper towel just a little, so that when I go back, I'm not going to saturate it, I'm just going to hit corners. Give him some highlight. Sort of up on the top of his head. Gently drag it over the hair on the back. I don't want to go too crazy with it. That's better. And then, if I can, what I'd like to do is get the corner of his mustache, edge of his beard, and the point. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. The very edge down here. Yeah. There we go. Perfect. And there we have him. Dark Armored Taryon Darrington. He's not as techno as I was originally having him come out to be, but he's a very dark colored armor, and I really like the way it came out. I think it looks very nice. All the gems are very, very glossy, very shiny. They have their own effect to them. He's like a bad guy, but with lots of colors just kind of sticking out in places, which looks pretty cool. So there we go. I'll get his base done later, but you guys have seen me do enough bases and there's not that much variance to them. And there's the full set. So that is the full set from the first Critical Role campaign. Keyleth is blocking Percy's face. But yeah, that's the crowd right there. Dodie in the back, Percy on the back right, Trinky, Vex, Vax, Pike, Scanlan, Grog, Keyleth, and Taryon in the front. So that's our that's the completion of our first series for the first Critical Role campaign. Sweet. Yeah, I'll finish up his base later. Again, you've seen me do it 7 other times. It's not that exciting. A little bit of glue, a little bit of overbrushing, a little bit of static grass, paint the color of the rim of the base of a particular color. I mean, really, I can do the edge of his base. I'm going to do it the same color as the armor, so I'm going to use that gray mixed with black, and that'll give him that strip. Or I could be crazy and just paint red, orange, blue, green, yellow, purple stripes all around the edges and make him look like a fruit stripe container. I don't think I'm going to do that. But yeah, I think we're looking good. Taryon came out very well. And he matches, as far as detail goes, with everybody else. I think my favorite out of all of them was Grog. He was ever so slightly larger than the others. Although Percy does look pretty darn good. So, mostly because Percy's got the cool weathering on his coat and on his pants and greaves and stuff like that. So he's not super clean. He's got some mud. So, I think he looks cool. But yeah, thanks for swinging by, guys. I really appreciate it. We got Taryon done in 1 as opposed to 2. When it comes to doing armor can be very quick. So yeah, we'll see what we do next week. Next week will be interesting. Tuesday at 8 p.m. I will try and decide what we're moving on to. I do have all the minis from the CR2 campaign, but I'm going to do a little in between. For those of you who didn't see it, Dodie also got finished up, and he's got some writing in his book as well. So, Ridiculous Dragon Interlude. The red one? I mean, red was one of the big angry enemies midway through the first campaign for Critical Role, so I suppose getting him done might not be bad. I could also try and find my Terminus model from War Machine, and he could be the stand-in Vecna if we wanted to do that. So we've got two options: Giant Red Dragon or Terminus War Machine Crixian Warcaster as a stand-in for Vecna. Maybe the dragon might be the way to go. Dragon's going to be a couple of sessions. He's real big. It's going to take a little while. But I think that would look pretty cool, and it might be fun. It might be fun to do. You'll be able to see bigger areas where washes get in, and we can do multiple stages on the scales to kind of blend them together and make them look really cool. I may have to try and find some bigger brushes. But yeah, thanks for stopping by. We will see you next week. In the meantime, enjoy tonight's episode of Critical Role because it's on in about 7 minutes. And yeah, stay safe, stay clean, wash your hands. Don't go around hugging strangers. It's just bad for you right now. So we'll catch you all later. May your rolls always come up 20s when you need them. And may they come up 1s for story, because those are always fun. Have a fantastic night, and see you next week.